Madam Clerk, has the warrant been properly posted as required by the bylaws of the town of Granby?
Yes, we have.
Select Board Chair Ms. Dufresne will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Sitting in front tonight, to my right, is the Select Board, Town Administrator, Town Council. Behind me is our Town Clerk, and then we have our Finance Committee to my left. As usual, I will quickly go through the procedure for tonight. If you'd like to comment and discuss an article as moved, please raise your hand, and I will have the microphone runner come to you. Wait for her to come to you, and then please state your name and address. You are allowed to ask one question at a time at the mic. Do not direct a question or comment to a particular person at town meeting. Instead, please direct your question or comment to me, and then I will direct it to the appropriate individual. All questions or comments must pertain to the articles on the warrant, and we limit the discussion and questions to the subject matter on the warrant because the warrant is a warning for the public about what we're going to talk about tonight. If you ask a question or make a comment that's outside the scope of the warrant, I will declare it out of order, and it won't be answered in this forum. In your handouts, you have the articles and motions, a Granby town meeting brochure, which tells you about meeting procedure, and you have an amendment worksheet, which explains how to amend a motion and a spot to write your amendment. If you are planning to make an amendment tonight, you must have the amendment in writing and ready to hand it to me before you ask for the amendment. Lastly, if you are a resident or non-voter, please sit in the designated area for non-voters to the left of the gym. The moderator will now call on Town Clerk Kathy Kelly Reagan for an announcement.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I'm just doing a reminder about voting. So all mail and ballots have been mailed out. So if you did not get your mail and ballot, then please give the office a call. You still can request a vote by mail ballot up until Tuesday, October 29th, if that's how you wish to vote. In-person early voting has started on Saturday, and it's going straight through till November 1st. So if you wish to vote in-person early voting, the hours are the same as our public office hours. So Monday through Thursday, 9 to 3, Fridays 9 to 12, and a Saturday 9 to 3. So you can do the in-person early voting that way if you wish. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 5th. So if you, for some reason, missed the in-person early voting, and now you realize you can't go to the polls, you still can do an absentee ballot in my office up until noontime on Monday, November 4th. So hopefully we'll see a lot of you out there. I'm getting a lot of ballots back, and the turnout so far for in-person has been good, so get out and vote, and thank you very much.
The moderator will now call on Select Board of Finance Committee Chairman, Mr. LeBaron, to speak.
Thank you. The Finance Committee has looked at the articles that would require any kind of monetary action and we voted in favor of all of them. Thank you very much.
The moderator will now call on Ms. Dufresne to present the motion under Article 1.
Madam Moderator, the town vote to transfer from account 01-192-5828-ART ATM 51324, number 17, cemetery paving, to account 01-192-5827 ART ATM 51324, number 8, library paving, the sum of $20,000 for the purpose of having sufficient funds to cover the bid price received.
Second? Any discussion?
When the town put together the estimate to repave the new library parking lot, we came up with the figure of $70,000. Upon bidding the project through the Franklin Regional Council of Governments Group Purchasing Program, the price came in at $82,317 for the asphalt and $7,500 for a milling machine for a total of $89,817.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, in order for this to pass, it must pass by a majority. All those in favor of Article 1 as moved, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The moderator will now call on Mr. Labonte to present the motion under Article 2.
Madam Moderator, the town vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5K as amended, to allow persons over the age of 60 to volunteer to provide services to reduce their real property tax bill, with a further provision to allow an approved representative for persons physically unable to provide such services.
Second? And discussion?
The Select Board has developed a property tax work-off abatement program in order to allow residents over the age of 60 to participate in the program. The town must accept the provisions of this Mass General Law.
Any comments or questions? Up in the bleachers. Oh, why don't you start right here first, and then go up into the bleachers.
Okay, thanks. As you well know, a lot of...
Address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Wayne Healy Furnett, 174 West State Street. Oh, God, that I remembered that. The question I'm asking is if a property owner is handicapped, all right, and that would prevent them from actually physically being able to take on a task of that, could it say a member of their family or somebody who lives in the household also do that for them if they were a senior citizen?
They don't have to be a senior citizen. If you're using a representative to do the work on your behalf, you have to be age 60 or above. The representative does not have to be that age or above. Okay? They could be 20, they could be 25, 30, whatever age they are. Okay?
Connolly, 21 Ferry Road, Granby, Massachusetts. I'm in favor of Article 2 because I have a father who is around 72 years old. And I would say to and this is for a senior citizen to have lived in this town for a very long time, and I believe that this article should pass because our senior citizens have given a lot and all to this community, and one day we will do the same. So I think this is a very, very good law, and I don't even think it needs a debate. I think we should totally 100% pass it, and thank you.
Any further discussion? Up here, no. Right here in the floor, and then I'll come to you.
Diana Kleindine, 66 Aldrich Street. I'm looking at the sheet called Town of Granby Property Tax Work-Off Abatement Program with guidelines. Could you offer some clarification on what the maximum income means? Is that based on W-2 forms? Is that based on returns, federal or state returns?
All right.
That would be based upon your federal IRS return.
And over here, yep. Mr. Leonard.
Greg Leonard, 168 Bachelor Street. I'm also on the Board of Assessors, and while the other question was being asked, just wanted to make sure that everyone understood the process of administering this program and the committee that it consists of, so that if you have not read through that worksheet, you would not know how it's going to be administered.
Question?
That wasn't a question, I think that was a comment, right?
Yes.
Any further questions? In order for the motion under Article 2 to pass, it must pass by a majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
A lot of feedback. That's not you.
All right. The moderator will now call on Mr. Labonte to present the motion under Article 3.
Madam Moderator, the town vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5N as amended, to allow veterans or a spouse of a veteran to volunteer to provide service to reduce their real property tax bill, with the further provision to allow an approved representative for persons physically unable to provide such services.
Second? And comments?
The Select Board has developed a property tax work-off abatement program in order to allow residents who are veterans or the spouse of a veteran to participate in the program. The town must accept the provisions of Mass General Law.
So are there questions? Seamus?
I'm just gonna hold it with the speakers. Okay. Seamus Connolly, 21 Ferry Hill Road, Granby, Mass. I have a question of, my father is a Air Force veteran. I am just a son, but would I be able to volunteer in that program to say with the property taxes as it was just described? Would I be able to volunteer if he was unable to volunteer for this program due to his age?
Due to his status as a veteran?
Due to his status as a veteran, yes. As a son.
Under the program, you can only get one abatement up to $1,500. So you wouldn't be able to get one as get one as a veteran and then another one as being elderly. This is for just people who are veterans. If you're over 60, you go in on being over the age of 60.
I think he's asking if he can,
Authorized representative, again, just like for the elderly. It's someone who can do the work for them. That's all it is.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Thank you.
any further questions or comments? In order for the motion to pass under Article 3, it must pass by a majority. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The moderator will now call on Ms. Dufresne to present the motion under Article 4.
Madam Moderator, may the town move to vote to transfer from the General Purpose Stabilization Fund the sum of $6,183.60 for the purpose of paying prior year bills for the Fire Ambulance Department.
Second, and discussion.
This article is seeking town approval to pay invoices that were incurred prior to June 30th, 2024 that were neither paid nor encumbered in that fiscal year.
Are there any comments or discussion? Okay, Seamus?
Okay. Seamus Connolly, 21 Fairhill Road, Granby, Massachusetts. We're one of the safest communities in the state, let alone the country. And I would suggest anything to our fire department and our police department need to be paid immediately. We need to continue to be one of the safest communities in the state, let alone the country. So I'd advocate for, yes, passing this immediately. And thank you for our fire department and our police department.
Any further comments or questions? In order for the motion under Article 4 to pass, it must pass by 9/10 majority. So, do I have to count it? Because it's unanimous, it was 9/10.
I think 9/10 you have to.
There's a requirement.
I think you already counted. It's 9/10, but if we do it, it's a majority.
It's not in the statute that you have to.
No, I didn't.
But I think
I think 2/3 you can declare.
Right.
I don't think you can declare 9/10.
Right. So we need to get the counters out.
it's unanimous. Sitting and looking to push over.
So all those in favor of the motion under Article 4, please raise your cards and keep them up.
I think she said 69. 69, yes.
62 point light. So what happened to 62? You don't have 60.
You don't have it.
Are you set, counters? Yes? All right, thank you. All those opposed, please raise your cards. Keep them up. All right, thank you. Come on over.
Last time.
Do it. You're gonna,
So no 56 stories, so that's 59 that voted. So it would be 9/10 of a 59.
so. How many days, how many days?
56 years, how many names?
Okay, yeah, so that would be.
95%. Thank you. So it's 95%.
You need 54.
You were so close.
Right? You have to have like. Right.
The motion passes by 9/10, 56 yes, 3 no. So it passed by 95%. The moderator will now call on Mr. Sexton to present the motion under Article 5.
Madam Moderator, I move the town vote to transfer from the General Purpose Stabilization Fund $230,340 for the purpose of funding the fiscal year 2025 Fire Department budget. $115,140, and for fiscal year 2025 Ambulance Department budget, $115,200, or take any other action thereof.
Second, and discussion?
Recently, the fire chief and the select board had met, and the fire chief had notified us that his current budget was not sufficient to meet the needs of the department through the current fiscal year, June 30th, 2025. So the select board had requested the chief to determine the amount of the shortfall for this fiscal year 2025, and the amount the fire chief has stated is the amount that I read to get us through to June 30th, 2025.
Are there any questions or comments? Right there. Oh, yeah.
Oh, three. Wayne Healy Frenette, 174 West State Street. I'd like to make a motion to take an anonymous vote on this article.
So a secret vote?
Thank you. I knew the word was in there somewhere.
Sure. In order to do a secret vote, what that means is you would all get a piece of paper with a yes or no on it. You would rip what you want to vote, and you would come up and drop that piece of paper in a box, a container over here, and then we would count that vote. So in order to do a secret vote, I need a second. I have a second, okay, and I need a majority of the town's approval to do that. So all those in favor to do a secret vote as opposed to this count that I've been doing, please raise your cards.
We're going to have further discussion.
Further discussion for a secret vote? Sure.
With the article as stated.
Yes, even though it'd be a secret vote, there still would be discussion. Is there any discussion on a secret vote? Okay, so all those in favor of a secret vote, please raise your cards. Can I have the counters come out? Keep your cards up, please.
Nope.
All set? All those opposed, please raise your cards. Got to raise them high so they can see them. Thank you. Thank you.
What, you try?
It's a tie.
Or you want to do another recount?
Well, they count each other, so we can do them then. I'll say it's a tie, so we can answer some questions. It
Goes by what we're doing here, right?
goes by the majority.
When it's tight,
Still pass.
Yeah, but the moderator can vote to break a tie.
What?
The moderator can vote to break a tie.
Yeah. It's a tie.
It's strongly discouraged.
It's a tie. So the motion fails because it was a tie and it has to pass by a majority.
Why?
Because then it shows.
So now I will open discussion again to the article as moved, right here in the, oh, okay.
Madam Moderator, before she comes up, can I ask that the fire chief come up here and be able to answer the questions as well?
Sure. Well, he can come right here to
Yes.
answer question.
He's not a town resident either, so.
Oh. And he doesn't have the special privilege.
No.
So in order to get the fire chief to speak, I need to get the town's permission. So all those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. So I have a majority opinion, so you'll be able to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Joshua Powers, 36 Pleasant Street in Granby. This article, as I understand it, is for staffing. This is not to spend money willy-nilly. This is to staff the fire department. Everyone who lives here gets an ambulance within 5 to 6 minutes. They get a fire truck in 5 to 6 minutes. If there's no staffing at the station, that goes away, and you now wait 10 to 20 minutes if an ambulance is available from mutual aid. To take that into consideration for this article, that you are voting to either staff the fire department or don't staff the fire department. It is not just to spend money, it's to keep us safe.
Thank you. Chief, do you want to speak before I call in more people? It's on. It should be on.
It's on now. Mike O'Neill, Fire Chief. This is for staffing. We currently have an injured firefighter out. We had a provisional firefighter covering for that firefighter. That injured firefighter will be back in the next couple of weeks, so the provisional position will go away. So that excess money that's being spent on the provisional will no longer be spent. We also have a firefighter EMT who has just obtained her medic, and by the middle of November will be acting as a paramedic to the service. So that'll give us 6 full-time paramedics on staff, which is the most full-time paramedics that Granby Fire has had since its inception. The other articles, overtime for fire and EMS, that goes contractually. We've tried to budget as best we can, but this is just a fraction of what the budget actually could be. We have 1,000 hours of vacation time from all the 6 full-time staff that they still could use up to June 30th, 2025. And we also have they have 3,000 hours of sick time that they can use. I can't predict the future. I can't predict what's going to happen. As for the per diems are filling in for when the ambulance is going to go out of service, which we cannot go out of service per Mass general law and federal law. We cannot go out of service and not have an ambulance service. The call guys, we're running to date, we're at 344 calls for service, and we still have, because we go on a January cycle, so we still have a couple months. We are going to exceed 400 fire calls in the town of Granby. The callmen only get paid when they get called out or if they go to training. If the callmen don't come in, there's no fire service. We have to rely on mutual aid, and if we can't supply a fire department, I have to contact the state fire marshal's office, and he has to determine what we are going to do moving forward. I don't want that to happen. Again, I would never have predicted that we would run 150 to 160 more calls than we did in the year past. It's just how it's been. In the last 3 weekends of October, we've run 22 fire calls. That's just fire calls, not the EMS included.
Thank you. Any comments? So go ahead, up in the bleachers.
Which one?
Him. Keep going. To your right, to your right, to your right.
Hello?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Serini, 3 Cedar Drive. I was wondering if you could have the fire chief comment on how the increase in calls for the fire and the ambulance puts the burden on the fire department and the staffing, where he has to call in off-duty personnel, and how that affects the budget. When I was on the fire department, we were doing a total of about 300 calls a year. I'd like to know what the call volume is right now, and, when the calls for service come in, and we can't staff, say the ambulance is out, he has to call in off-duty personnel to meet the out-of-town provider. If you could inform the public about that.
Yeah, so we're only staffed with 2 firefighters on duty, or per diem. So 2 people are on duty for the ambulance and the fire engine. If the ambulance goes out to the hospital, there's no staffing left in the station. We rely on call members. And if call members, when the tone goes out to come back to a medical call or fire call, don't come back, we're relying on mutual aid. And mutual aid's up to 20 minutes away, if they can even supply us with anything, because of how busy everyone is around us. It comes down to a safety concern and not being able to provide the highest level of service that you're expecting when you call 911 and get a police officer or an ambulance or a fire truck within 5 to 7 minutes to your house. You're talking 20 plus minutes.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seamus?
Yep. Seamus Connolly, 21 Ferry Road. I am going to say we need to vote on this. Our community cannot be vulnerable at any point. We really need the fire department, we need our ambulance drivers, and we definitely do need to have this. We have surrounding towns that have a much larger population and a lot more issues. Granby's one of the safest communities in the state of Massachusetts and within the country, as far as raising families and other stuff like that. I would say I 100% agree with the fire chief, and I 100% agree that this bill needs to pass. So if you want to keep your community safe, our senior citizens, our children, and future generations to come, I would say vote yes on this bill. We cannot be playing money, just saving a few dollars, a few $1,000s here and there in this case.
Thank you, Seamus. You had a question over here, down in the middle of the floor.
Thanks. Jeff Lawson, Burke Lane. Full disclosure, I am a full-time dispatcher here for police, EMS, and fire. Just to reiterate what was already said, these guys are busy, real busy. This past weekend was extremely busy. Call after call, calls stacked up on top of each other. Like the chief said, mutual aid, we have to reach out. If not till the surrounding communities, we have a radius of other communities we have to reach out to, which delays response. He's looking for money for staff. We already have a garage full of nice, beautiful, shiny trucks. We need the staff to operate them and to respond to calls. So we need to fully support the chief and fully support this article. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Leonard?
Greg Leonard, 168 Bachelor Street, and I appreciate all you guys do, but as a taxpayer in town, I'm looking at the 3rd year of massive overages in the fire department budget, and I'm getting numb from the most massive increase to a budget, and I want to know what happens if we vote this down.
We'll do the best that we can to provide the service, but 5 to 7 days out of each month going forward, the ambulance and fire apparatus will be out of service, and mutual aid companies will have to respond in to take care of our calls.
Mr. Serini?
Anthony Anthony Serini, 3 Cedar Drive. I'm wondering what the income from the ambulance is per year and what's the projected amount of money that we would possibly lose if we don't staff the ambulance. We average about 450,000 a year, give or take, okay, as actual income. As to how much you would lose, I wouldn't even be able to hazard that because I wouldn't know how many calls you would lose by not having an ambulance available. That's precisely my point. We can't predict the number of calls that the fire department is going to respond to. So we are in a situation that we don't know what the expenditures are going to be because he can't predict how many calls we're going to have. So this is, it's a constant thing that we're going to have to battle. But if we don't know how many calls, it's not like a widget factory. If a call comes in, they have to handle it. We have to provide the staffing.
Mr. Hool, over here.
Dennis Hool, 239 Chicopee Street. We've been going through this process 2 or 3 years in a row that we've had to allocate extra funds. Would it be in the best interest of the town to hire a couple more full-timers? That gives you the flexibility for rotation of shifts and the backup coverage. Also, I want to make a comment on what Anthony said. You can't predict the amount of runs. A few years ago, we were going through this with the school committee, and the bottom line was it was always their special needs budget. They never knew what they were going to have for students coming in that required special needs until September. They get 2 new students, and it blows the budget over $100,000. This is the same scenario. I'm still active in the chief meetings. I've talked to some chiefs. Everyone in Western Mass is going crazy. All the run volumes are up across the board. When South Hadley comes into here, District 2 covers District 1, and maybe Amherst is going to cover District 2. It's a vicious circle that everyone's going out. It's common. Amherst one day had 9 back-to-back calls, and they called in just about the world to take their runs. I'm thinking we really need to look at further staffing with the flexibility of you having the availability of adding to shifts taken away. You have a general idea when the hot points are and the days and I really think we need to look at that because we could be back. Here we are, 3 months into the new budget, and we're allocating almost $250,000 again. We could be here January doing the same thing. It's not the chief, it's the town. So I really think we need to look at doing this different. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Stand up, please, so she can see you. Thank you.
My name is Chad Cunningham, 26 Circle Drive. I've been a career firefighter for almost 18 years now in a neighboring city, and our city averages about 6,500 calls a year, but we have had many years where that has jumped to 9,000, 9,800, and we almost hit 12,000 one year. You cannot manage the budget of a fire department by guessing the calls. You just don't know. The chief he can look at numbers, he can look at certain aspects of how the calls are coming in, but you just cannot predict what's going to happen. A busy year is going to take the budget. There's nothing you can do about it.
Thank you. And right next to him?
Joshua Powers, 36 Pleasant Street. Chief, if I'm correct, you are not currently over budget. This is an estimation of what the budget overages will be by the end of June, and it could be less.
That's correct. We're currently not over budget. and that this is the projection that could be over or under budget.
All right, seeing no more questions or comments. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Sexton.
Chief, I just want to clarify too, you started off with the explanation that this has to do with staffing, that some people are currently out. That's where the overtime and things are coming to. It's not that you're understaffed, it's just that where you are right now is the staffing that you need because current people are out.
Yes, that's correct. The current staffing, now that we get 2 more paramedics back, that'll help with the overall coverage of the town.
Mr. Leonard?
And one more follow-up. You sounded as though there was unfunded liability with the sick time and the vacation time that is outstanding with your staff.
That's 100% correct. With the hours that are still out there, it could add up to $70,000 more in overtime with that they're eligible to take, and I cannot tell them they can't. I'm hoping that's not the case, but it's a possibility.
So unless anybody has something different to say, I'm going to move the question. In order for this motion to pass, it must pass by a 2/3 majority. So all those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes by a 2/3 majority. The moderator will now call on Mr. Sexton to present the motion under Article 6.
Madam Moderator, I move the town vote to amend the bylaws of the town of Granby, Volume 1, Chapter 14, Canine Control, by deleting the existing Chapter 14, Canine Control, and by inserting a new Chapter 14, Animal Control bylaw.
Second? And discussion?
After an incident occurred at Dufresne Park, the resident came to the select board regarding the town's current canine control bylaw and asked for changes that would be necessary. The select board held public hearing regarding the purpose of the animal control bylaw and had developed by the former bylaw review committee. Resulted in an animal control bylaw that's now being presented to the town for approval.
So, any discussion? How about right here in the middle of the bleachers?
Hi, Georgie Brown, 11 Hubbard Drive. I just had a question actually in the definition section. I was just a little confused. It says domestic animal is any animals that live with humans as pets and are provided food and shelter by humans. Okay. But then for personally owned animal, it says any animal that is not a domestic animal as defined in this bylaw. Would that not then refer to literally every animal, like wild animals too? I'm confused. Like, if it was...
She's not personally wild animal.
Right, I'm not sure what she's asking.
So I guess we're a little confused at what you're asking because you don't personally own a wild animal. It's a wild animal.
But it doesn't say that in the bylaw. It just says any animal. It doesn't say personally owned in the law.
So any animal that is not a domestic animal, so it doesn't live in your house and you're not feeding it. So domestic would refer to an animal that's living in your house and you are feeding it and giving it shelter.
Right, but it doesn't say any personally owned animal. It just says any animal. Maybe it needs to be amended or something.
You don't usually put the definition, the word, I guess, now I'm going to kind of play English teacher here. You don't usually put the word that you're defining in the definition. So we're saying it's a personally owned animal, right? So any animal that is not a domestic animal, you wouldn't say any personally owned animal. because it's
So
already the word
would you
that
say
we're defining.
any animal that is owned by, like, that is, it just says any animal, like, if you're defining personally owned animal and you're just saying any, like, just, it, to me, it doesn't really make sense.
And I believe we got this from DCR, right? Right.
Those are exotic. Those are right, you're talking exotic animals.
So we could,
They're not wild.
we could put exotic.
Who's calling me?
I've actually been
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see who was calling me. Go ahead. Could you put that microphone closer?
Personally owned
Your name and
animal.
address?
Greg Leonard, 168 Bachelor, could be defining livestock. Typically,
But it doesn't say that.
that's a description.
So, if you don't have the microphone, wait for the microphone to speak, please. Does anybody have a?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan O'Toole, Town Council. So, personally owned animal has a specific definition for this proposed new bylaw. Okay? So when you see the term personally owned animal within the bylaw, okay, that's the definition that you put in there. You don't use the common definition here. So it looks like, I just did a quick word search on the document here. There's 15 instances where personally owned animal in conjunction typically with domestic animal or dog is in there. So that's what you do. That's just a bit of a statutory construction lesson there, to the extent that that helps you with, in terms of the definition. You have to read it within the context of the entire proposed bylaw.
Mr. Abbott in front.
Tim Abbott, 11 Deerbrook Drive. I believe that the bylaw is unduly restrictive and it doesn't really fit the character of the town. I think keeping the bylaw as it is, maybe adding on some extra prohibitions like dogs that are chasing or, attacking people. But for the question that the person had about any personally owned animal, in section 8, C, it says any personally owned animal that defecates on public or private property. I actually watched the special board meeting, and they defined that to include horses because they didn't want to just leave it as dogs. So anyone's horse, and they actually went on quite a discussion about this, anyone's horse, they're riding a horse within town, they said you had to walk behind it or have a bucket to pick up the horse manure. I feel like that's unduly restrictive for people that own horses in town. And there was another part of the bylaw that talked about any dogs that bark within, for a half an hour at any time of the day. I mean, there's lots of farmers in town. They have dogs that bark to protect their livestock. I feel like that's unduly restrictive. I looked at a lot of the bylaws in other towns that's in the surrounding communities, and they don't have leash laws. It's more voice control like we have. I was surprised that Chicopee actually is more lenient than this would be. It seems like very atypical for a farming community to have a leash law, especially when there's no other states. I think I looked it up and it was Michigan that had anything that approximated a leash law. In Massachusetts, the only time you have to leash your dog is in a rest stop on the highway, which makes sense. They don't want the dogs to run into the oncoming traffic. So I believe that this is, I think people should vote against it.
Thank you. Above him in the bleachers, could you stand up so she can see you? Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Kevin Monforte, 14 Coleshill Drive. I'm the parent of 3 small children. So Mia is 4 years old. I have 2 twin boys, 2. We visit Dufresne's Park quite a bit, and other public areas. My kids get jumped regularly by dogs, and it scares the crap out of me, and especially out of my kids. My kids are this size, and I know, again, nothing against dogs, but people at Dufresne's Park are not farming, they're walking their dogs, and they're not under voice control, let's just say that. We've had several incidents where dogs come racing into the playground. My kids panic because you might think your dog or you see another dog is cute and cuddly, and but my kids see a big head their size, and it was happened like 2 weeks ago. This is probably the 6th time that's happened. One of my kids panicked and started running, and then I'm chasing my child who's screaming and a dog who's going after him. Now, the dog was being playful, but I don't know if the dog is being playful, and I don't want to have to always wait till it's too late to find out if the dog is going to be aggressive or not. And as much as everybody feels their dog is under voice control or is the cutest dog in the world, there's just no telling when the dog is going to snap. And again, with the character of the town, if we want new families to come in, it's a great place to raise kids. I feel like if we're going to share a park like Dufresne's with dogs, with dog owners and dogs, I understand everybody's happy watching their dog run free, but I also want my kids to kind of like not get jumped by dogs. So I would strongly encourage further debate. I would vote yes on this amendment, but I would also, maybe we start a discussion where maybe there's hours where the dogs can run free, and then we know, we can make a judgment whether we bring our kids or not. Maybe we fund a larger enclosed area so dogs can run free in the enclosed area. But little children and dogs don't always mix well, and I honestly have been going more to Belchertown because they have that big playground. There's no dogs allowed there, so. But I would love to keep my kids here, closer in the areas that we have, without having that kind of like suspicion and always looking around to see if a dog is going to like race through to the playground and get excited about one of my kids. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seamus, behind you.
Seamus Connolly at 21 Ferry Hill Road, Granby, Mass. I'd like to say I was a victim as a child getting bitten by a dog, not at Dufresne's Park, not anywhere in town but my own property. This is 26 years ago. I was 8 years old. I remember it was a Wednesday. It was October 7th, 1998. I was 8 years old. The dog came into my yard and bit me, as the People's History of Granby page would tell you when I asked Lieutenant Puller for the police report from that day. I was bitten, and whether Granby had a leash law or not back in the 2000s, I always kept my dog as a teenager on a leash because there are small children at Granby at the time, and I always was considerate of there being senior citizens who were old enough to be my grandmother, and I was very considerate. For those of you who could remember my first time at GAA, I always kept the dog on a leash. I was being considerate of others. I really believe that it's overdue for a leash law in Granby. We do need to have a leash law. We do need families to be safe, and we do need Granby to be the most safest community as we have always been. However, some of the other things about the barking and the barking, I think we can't stop dogs from barking for 30 minutes or for that. That is just unrealistic. Some dogs have a habit of barking and they don't stop. However, I do believe we do need to have a leash law. It is well overdue. I never allowed my personal time of getting bitten by a dog affect me that well. I ended up having 2 dogs, one when I was a kid and a teenager, and then another in my 20s. But I always was considerate with the residents whenever I was at Dufrane's Park or any other place I would take my dog in the country or anywhere else in the state, because that is what considerate people do.
Thank you, Seamus. And how about to the right?
Hi, Sabrina Obremski, 59 Crescent Street. So I would like to know how to separate what is proposed here, because I do see very clearly from personal experience both sides. We do have a horse farm on Crescent Street. About a month ago, we had a horse who was outside overnight who was attacked by a bear. Thousands of dollars of medical bills. She will survive. She will not be the same. These are very expensive animals, and we do need our dogs. We live in a rural community to be able to protect our livestock. With that said, I think it's two very different pieces of agenda. Because we've also had children riding at Dufrane's Park and had dogs, well, even on the street, and had dogs who were unleashed chase the horses and had kids get injured that way. And I've called the police for incidents like that in the past. So I don't understand why this has to be bundled into one particular amendment.
So,
go ahead.
I just want to clarify something. So if you did watch the select board meeting, it was a very long debate over whether or not horses should be included in here. If you watch it till the end, we said it was too much to bundle horses in here, that they are not a domestic animal. And so I don't know why everyone's stuck on that. We're not saying that you have to necessarily pick up your horse manure on town property. We're asking that you be cognizant of the fields that the kids play on at Dufrane's Park, that you also are cognizant of people's property, not walking your horse or riding your horse on their property and letting them defecate everywhere. So it was a discussion that was had. We understand that Granby is a farming community with horses. So the horses are not part of this. If you look at 8B, like Mr. Abbott was saying, it says a domestic animal that defecates on public or the private property of another domestic animal. So no horses are being lumped in here. So I just want to clarify that, because I feel like a lot of people who might not have watched it all the way to the end. So there's nothing in here that's talking about horses.
Well, I understand that, but according to the definition that goes back to the very first question, it says any animal that lives with humans and are provided food and shelter by humans.
So horses don't live in the house.
So it has to be something that lives in the house.
Something that lives in the house,
Okay.
yes.
Shelter them in a barn. They're sheltered. It doesn't
So is
say
that- Sorry, I think we really probably do need just a little bit of clarification on the domestic animal piece. Sorry.
So it says any animals that live with humans. So you are giving them shelter, but they're not living with you. You don't put your cow in your house. You don't put your horse in your house. Goats. I mean, some people might, I guess. But it says any animals that live with humans as pets. So it says and are provided food and shelter. So yes, you provide horse and livestock with food and shelter, but they're not living with you in your home. So again, I mean, if people need that clarification, it could be amended, I guess, where we change that to living in the household. I don't know if they need that clarification.
If somebody wants to suggest an amendment, that's up to the town. Mr. Abbott?
Well, I believe domestic animals, two separate things, because in 8C, it specifically says a personally owned animal defecating. So personally owned animal is any animal that is not a domestic animal or as defined in this bylaw. So you're contradicting what you just stated. And I agree with the gentleman. I think there should be some restrictions on dogs. Dogs should not be allowed to run at large throughout the park. That's what a lot of towns put in their bylaws. Dogs should not be at large. They should be under voice control. They shouldn't be running after children in the playground, that kind of thing. So I've got nothing wrong with that. But just to have a blanket leash law doesn't make any sense, especially for the town.
Georgie?
Hi, Georgie Brown, 11 Hubbard Drive. I agree with what he was saying. That was kind of what I also wanted to get at, that like it just says any personally owned animal can also be deemed a nuisance, and I would consider my horse to be a personally owned animal. So I completely agree. I do think that a leash law is very reasonable, but I think that this law is unduly restricted, and I would urge people to vote no on this, and then maybe we can rewrite it and come back together with something that makes a little more sense for our community.
In the front here, you stand up, sir, so she can see you. Yeah, no, not you, him. And then I'll get to you, Mr. Nally.
Thanks. Chad Cunningham, 26 Circle Drive. I think that this is incomplete and overbroad. Under kennel, line A, 1I there, it says a group or a collection of 5 or more dogs kept on a single premises for private personal use. What is private personal use? Is that?
I'm sorry, what section are you on?
Under the definitions, under kennel, AI.
Okay.
A group or collection of 5 or more dogs kept on a single premises for private personal use. What is private personal use? That's not defined. Does it include dogs that you just keep as pets? And then under the dog licensing, under kennels, there's no fees, and there's a section about kennel inspections, but it lists nothing about what the kennel inspection is going to include. There's no parameters or anything. So what are we voting on to accept as an inspection? I think this document is incomplete. Again, it's overbearing, and I think it should be tabled and looked at and brought back when it's written a little clearer. Thank you.
Mr. Nally?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Steve Nally, 31 Pleasant Street. Obviously, there's a fair amount of contention regarding this article, and I would suggest to the town meeting to send it back to committee by voting it down, so I move the question.
So moving the question means a town meeting member wants to vote, doesn't want to hear any more discussion on it. I need a second. And in order to move the question, we need a 2/3 majority. So all those in favor of halting discussion and voting, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes by a 2/3 majority. So now we are no longer discussing the motion, but we will be voting on a motion under Article 6 as moved. It must pass by a majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion fails by a majority.
Madam Moderator.
What?
Just make it out. I just make it, yeah, I do.
Okay. The moderator recognizes Mr. Sexton to make an announcement.
I would just ask, and I definitely appreciate everybody's comments when we're referring to a new bylaw, because we definitely want everybody's input. When this came in front of the select board had 2 public hearings and asked the public to come and voice their concerns and their thoughts or opinions. We are a committee or a board of 3, and we definitely need the input from the residents of Granby. So as this goes back, I'm sure the select board is going to take this up again to bring this bylaw forward. I would ask that we do have people come and assist us with their comments and concerns, and so that we can bring a maybe a better and improved bylaw to the town to vote on.
Thank you. The moderator now calls for a motion to dissolve the special town meeting. All those in favor? Thank you. The meeting is dissolved.
Just thinking of the order of that word.